In 2024, for the first time in the ground effect era, we saw Red Bull really struggle. They struggled to fight off their rivals at McLaren and Ferrari, they struggled to develop a drivable car, and they struggled to hold their team together. Now though, they've had a winter break to regroup and formulate a plan to get themselves back to the level that saw them produce the most dominant season in the sport's history in 2023. To get anywhere near that though, there is a lot of work to be done. Today, I'm going to talk about those struggles from 2024 and how the team plans to turn them around in 2025, so don't go anywhere. 2024 was not an easy season for the Red Bull team. Yes, I am aware that Max Verstappen won the Drivers' Championship, but his individual performances couldn't mask the issues with the team. Max won 7 of the first 10 races last year and went on to win a 4th consecutive Drivers' Championship, despite only picking up 2 further wins all season. However, that drop in performance after the opening rounds of the year was very obvious. McLaren, Ferrari, and for a very short period, even Mercedes managed to improve their performance above the RB20s. That led to Red Bull losing their commanding lead in the Constructors' Championship, eventually finishing 77 points behind winners McLaren and 63 points behind second-place Ferrari. There are advantages to be gained from finishing third though. Due to the sliding scale of aerodynamic testing time, Red Bull's third-placed finish means they'll have more wind tunnel time and computational flow dynamics testing time over the first 6 months of 2025 than the 2 teams that beat them. Now, there is no chance that they finished third on purpose to gain that advantage. The money lost from the decreased prize winnings and sponsor payouts wouldn't make it worthwhile. The drop in performance that led to that third-place finish came from an update that team principal Christian Horner says still made the car quicker overall, but made it particularly difficult to extract that pace consistently. It was actually an update that got introduced in 2023, which started a development direction that made the car harder and harder to drive. As the car became harder to drive, Sergio Perez's performances became worse. The Mexican just couldn't compete with the Ferraris and McLarens, which cost Red Bull in the end. That was a mistake that Red Bull admitted to. They took the blame for Checo's fall-off in performance, not that it saved his position on the team, of course. Speaking about what went wrong in 2024, Christian Horner said, "I think we've got a good understanding of development-wise where things weren't. I would say around Imola we introduced an upgrade that made the car far more peaky in its performance, and it had a very narrow operating window. When you got it into that window, the 4 straight laps in Austria for example, that were all good enough for pole, it was very much in that window. If you stepped a millimeter either side of it, it became much more problematic of a car to drive, which Max was able to mask and drive around, and I think that's what hurt Checo particularly. It's that the window was so narrow. The car only operating in a small window was the same problem that Mercedes had in 2024. Like Red Bull, when they got it into the right window, it was pretty good. They managed that over 6 races before the summer break, where they picked up 6 podiums and 3 wins, and at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. But otherwise, they were well off the pace, and neither driver could mask that fact. Of course, knowing your car has a very small window it will perform in is only the start of the problem. Now, Red Bull need to find out if the problem lies in their suspension, if it's a problem with the aerodynamics of the floor, or if they accidentally put their ballast too far toward one end of the car. Honestly, it could be anything, but Red Bull will have hundreds of people on the problem over the winter to identify it and then solve it. Speaking of the winter plan, Horner said, "And so I think what the engineers have been very much focused on over the winter is how you broaden that window. Not necessarily adding ultimate performance, but just broadening the window so that you've got, across the different challenges and circuits that we visit, a much wider operating window." Of course, Red Bull haven't just been waiting for the winter break to work on the issue. Verstappen's last 2 wins of the year came in the final 4 rounds of the season, and Horner says that shows progress was being made with last year's car that bodes well for 2025. "In some of the races, I think that we brought some performance to the car," he said. "Austin, we managed to get the sprint pole and win the sprint race. We should have arguably had the pole. Obviously the win in Brazil, but also encouraging in Brazil was the performance in the dry in the sprint race. And a day like the Sunday in Brazil, Max shone above all others and still produced 14 laps that were good enough for the fastest lap. The turnaround that we had in Qatar and the pole and the victory, again showing that, I think, we're on the right trajectory. I'm sure Sergio Perez will say that if they'd focused on drivability while he was still at the team, then he could have turned his form around. That's just the way things fall sometimes. Of course, as I said in the intro, Red Bull's issues weren't just limited to their car's performance. But before I talk about that, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch some more F1 news in the run-up to the 2025 season, then make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. There was a hilariously long chain of events that almost culminated in Max Verstappen moving to Mercedes in 2024. It all started with Toto Wolff passing up on Verstappen before the Dutchman joined Red Bull as a teenager. The regret he felt over that decision motivated him to only offer Lewis Hamilton a one-year contract extension because he didn't want to make the same mistake with Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who will now drive for Mercedes in 2025 as Hamilton's replacement. That one-year contract pushed Hamilton out of the team, with the announcement coming just before the Christian Horner inappropriate message scandal kicked off, which caused Verstappen to reconsider his future. Verstappen waited for months to confirm he would stay with Red Bull for 2025, during which time Toto Wolff tried his absolute hardest to tempt the reigning world champion to his team. Obviously, that move never happened, and Mercedes eventually confirmed Antonelli alongside Russell for 2025, but the entire F1 world thought it could have. However, according to Christian Horner, it was never a worry for Red Bull. Red Bull has a contract with Verstappen through the end of 2024, and asked whether any of the speculation around his future would persist into the new year, Horner said to motorsport.com, "Max has always been crystal clear with the team. His commitment has been unwavering. He enjoys the people that he trusts and the people that he works with, and enjoys very much being a part of his team. Of course, with the talent that he has, I'm sure he's on every team principal's Christmas wish list. That's inevitable. But as long as we can continue to provide him with a competitive car and an environment that he enjoys racing in, I don't see any desire for him to be anywhere else." Pointed towards comments from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix where Verstappen said he would leave if motorsport advisor Helmut Marko did, Horner replied, "Well, Helmut hasn't left and isn't leaving, so I think that Max is... He recognizes the value of the team, and that's really, again, what he's nurtured during this period. When the car isn't delivering as you hope, your pit stops have got to be strong, the strategy has got to be good, your reliability's got to be there. You've got to be making the right decisions at the right moments." Horner is right. While Red Bull's car may have gone in the wrong direction over the past year and a half, the rest of their race performance is arguably the best in the sport. They dominated the 2024 DHL Pit Stop Award, which honors a team with the fastest pit stops over the course of the year. The team rarely makes strategy blunders on the scale of Ferrari or McLaren as well. So while Red Bull may not have the fastest car in the sport, Verstappen can rely on them to perform elsewhere and make the most of what they have. That consistency is important for a driver, and Max will know that when they do have a car that can compete for wins, Red Bull will give him the best chance of converting that performance. Do you think Red Bull will fix their car for 2025 and return to the top of the sport? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.